It's actually been really funny watching some people online say that other players are overreacting to Badgermole Cub.
Oh?
Like, there have been, I think the week that it came out, people were already ban it, ban it, ban it. And to be fair, like, in defense, like, there was one creator who was like, you guys need to chill. It's been 2 weeks. And in their defense, I agree a little bit. I think 2 weeks is not enough of a litmus test to decide if a card is, like, busted or bannable or ban-worthy or not. But that being said, I think this year especially, people have more of an eye and an ear for cards that have power crept the format. Like, we had Corey Steelcutter, The Boy Who Shall Not Be Named, and now Badgermole Cub.
Don't forget Up the Beanstalk.
It's so fun. Okay. It's so funny that you say that, because to me, looking at all of these other cards, I am still in the class of people that's like, I don't know if this really needed to be banned. Now, that being said, where we are now with how cards get discount, like, reduced, like airbending stuff, you'd cast it for 2, but it's still a 5 mana or greater spell. Like, understandably, it would be too powerful now. But it's so interesting to think that, like, on its face, a 2-minute enchantment that, like, draws you a card and also would kind of force you into playing worse expensive cards to get the benefit of drawing additional cards doesn't seem good.
We don't need Up the Beanstalk in a format with Quantum Riddler.
Oh, yeah. That's right. All right, fine. Okay, maybe. I'm sorry. I just loved... Now, the reason I am such a staunch defender of Up the Beanstalk is not because I was an Overlords player.
Okay.
It's because I was a Zevin Faust Golgari Graveyard player. That is why.
Oh my god, I forgot about that deck. Yeah,
I can't believe that was the deck that I forgot
Of course.
in the, like, Fringe Tier 2, which, again, hilarious to say Fringe Tier 2, like, he didn't top a Pro Tour with it. But it really, like, it was poorly represented. Like, no one was playing the deck. Zevin Faust just played out of his mind and, like, skill diffed everyone on it. And also, Up the Beanstalk is a good card, I'll admit it. But, like, I'm such a staunch defender of Up the Beanstalk because you had to play seriously bad cards in the Golgari Graveyard deck. You were playing 7-mana commons that had graveyard reduction attached to them to make you able to cast them for, like, 1 and a black or just black. Like, you played horrible cards because the Domain Overlords deck, all of the Overlords are good. Like, there is something about most of the, especially the green and the white Overlord, that is good. Those are good cards. And the fact that, sure, you had, you impended them, you drew a card, you had to wait still, they're still good. And when they unimpend, they are fantastic. So, like, I stand by. I was, like, really in the weeds of playing horrible, horrible cards to enable Up the Beanstalk, which is why I'm such a staunch defender of it.
Yeah, look, I think in the context of the format that it was in, it was fine.
Mm-hmm.
We had this conversation way back when where we were like, back when that was standard, it probably didn't need to go. But when you think about it in the context of the cards that are currently banned, Up the Beanstalk is banned in every format it's legal in.
Yeah.
Except for Vintage, I think. Like, it is banned in Legacy, right? It's definitely banned in Standard. It's definitely banned in Modern. I'm pretty sure it's banned in Legacy.
Do you want to just check right now?
Yeah, we should check that,
Just check it right now. Odds on... Actually, I'm going to say Rogue. Here's what I'm going to say. Rogue, I'm going to say it's legal in Oathbreaker because so many things are legal in Oathbreaker, on Scryfall.
I mean, it's probably fine in Tiny Leaders, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm going to say, like, odds on it's banned in every format. That matters. Controversial.
Oh, I'm wrong. It's just banned in Standard and Modern. I could have sworn it was banned in Legacy. I feel like Up the Beanstalk Force of Will's pretty good.
Oh, okay. But maybe not good enough for everything else that happens in Legacy.
Sure. How long do you reckon it would have taken for people to work out Up the Beanstalk, Quantum Riddler, Prosthetic Memory?
Don't say that. Don't say that. Wow. Yeah. But look, I mean, going back to Badgermole Cub, even though it's a green card, I think I am controversially in the camp of ban it.
Girlie, you've been in the camp of ban it for every single one of these cards from like 2 weeks after it's printed. That's not controversial.
But it's I know what I'm on. I know what I'm on about. Because I'm going, ban it, and then 4 months later, Wizards goes, Kira, do you think it needs to be banned? And I say yes.
They call you up personally.
Gavin Verhey calls me specifically and says, Kira, what do you think should be banned in Standard? Because I did call Profts. I did say that they were going to ban Profts when the inevitable VV banning happened. I said they were going to ban Profts. And that was on the advice, like, I had been talking to better competitive players than myself who had been play testing and had said, like, if...
Do I get to take a drink?
No, it was not... Oh, was it? There's a chance it was Ben Tudman. There's a chance it was Ben Tudman. In my head, I could have sworn it was Dylan.
Sure.
But anyways, a anonymous bus stop player who had said that there was like testing being done as like a faux ban. We're temporarily playing with like VV and Cauldron being banned. And if they don't ban Profts, this is the most busted card in the format as it stands. It needs to go. And I was like, you've convinced me. This is brilliant, because they were saying things like Proft's fear of missing out. And I was saying, shut up. That's scary. But let me explain as well.
All right.
Why Badgermole Cub is such a startlingly powerful card.
Especially for a card that wasn't in the top 8 of the most recent Standard.
Especially for a card that wasn't in the top 8, but was represented within Worlds.
Second most represented deck, I believe.
Airbender Ascension combo, very, very strong. Now, the reason is because, sure, on its face, it's a 2-mana 2/2 with Earthbend 1. And if you ignore everything about Earthbending and you ignore the rest of the text on Badgermole Cub, it's fine. But it's actually a 2-mana 3/3 that taps, like, that basically costs 0, because when you Earthbend 1, the other line of text on Badgermole Cub is if you would tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. And if you Earthbend on an untapped land, you replace it. And you net neutral on your mana. And in a format with Gene Pollinator and Llanowar Elves, this just becomes unacceptable in terms of how much extra mana you get access to. And the other thing that I think really gets overlooked with Badgermole Cub is the ability stacks with more cubs. It is not instead, it's not a replacement. It is just an additional thing that happens. And so if you have 2 Badgermole Cubs on the field, your Llanowar Elves tap for 3. Your Earthbended lands tap for 3. When you Gene Pollinator tap another creature, it adds 3. And if you have 3 Badgermole Cubs, things tap for 4. And that is a level of mana acceleration that we haven't seen in Standard pretty much at all this year, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, we saw a little bit of it right at the start with the Temur land stack.
Yeah.
The, like, Nissa spelunking and the... Goodness, Virtuous Strength, I think it is, that makes all your lands tap for triple.
Yeah.
Like that definitely existed, and it would kill people with Doppelgang. But yes, not since then really have we seen that same level of big mana. Because even Overlords, which was kind of the biggest mana deck in the format for a long, long time, like was actually just casting 7-8 mana spells.
I think as well, like the break point for a lot of these cards is the speed at which they become a 4-of main deck.
Okay.
In terms of, like, they are recognizably good and immediately replace another card that perhaps has been a staple up until its printing. Like, Badgermole Cub was immediately a 4-of, not only in Airbender Ascension combo, but in Simic Ouroboros and in Simic Aggro. Like, it immediately fell into multiple decks, which is what we saw happen to Corey Steelcutter. Like it immediately, like Corey Steelcutter immediately went into Is It Prowess decks, and it immediately went into red aggro decks. The speed with which it was adopted, and in a format where you can have like Innkeeper's Talent and Ouroboros out, it accelerates so unbelievably quickly in a way that is not entirely fair. Especially because the Earthbend ability at its core is so strong. The fact that if this land would die or be put into exile, it comes back tapped, means you are, at a minimum, usually like 3-for-1ing your opponent.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
Ketramos.
What about it?
It saw 4 of play in Standard basically immediately. It was like $80 for a while there. It's not banned. In fact, it's not even played. It's actively terrible.
It actually, I don't know if you saw this, it was played in approximately one deck at the Standard 10K Open at Command Fest in an Orzhov control list.
That sounds very cool.
It was infuriating.
Oh?
Because the pilot took forever and could not play particularly quickly. And the games went to like turn 12 and it was like, I want to go home. I want to go home. Because it was kind of, not for nothing, it was kind of non-deterministic. They didn't really have a win con. If like the opponent had a blocker, you just put the blocker in front of Ketramos and you just kind of keep bashing things.
Very much a Gabriel Nassif style. Everything interacts, nothing kills you sort of control deck.
I understand your point there. I think the difference being that Ketramos was only seeing play in a very specific kind of control exile deck, whereas Badgermole has been picked up in a variety of different decks and provides an enormous amount of utility. Whereas Ketramos, you had to have, like, there was so much more that you needed to activate it before it became genuinely useful as, like, an attacker, because, or even a blocker. It was like, you need at least 7 cards in exile between one or both players. You need to exile things only during your turn, not during any turn, to lose a life and draw a card. And the fact that it was so restricted by being 2 color pips at the start of the year when mana was still incredibly bad meant that it was played very little and in very specific decks.
Yeah, incredibly bad, but the best deck was a 4-color control deck.
Yeah.
Incredibly bad TM.
Incredibly bad asterisk. Ask me how. And again, that's where I think, like, there were so many caveats to Ketramos being more powerful. Like, again, on its surface, and this is where I think, like, the kind of, like, the parody being, like, on its surface, Ketramos is incredibly powerful, and on its surface, at, like, ignoring the bottom line of text, Badgermole Cub doesn't seem that powerful. But Ketramos being 3 mana and needing a lot of cards in exile meant you generally actually couldn't even attack or block with it on the turn that it was played. Badgermole Cub being a 2-mana 2/2 that's actually gives you a second creature. So it's 2 mana for 2 creatures, and also there's more upsides. I think it is just open-faced, way more powerful.
Sure.
This little cub, more strong than a god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would win?
I love Magic, design space, and story.
Well, it's the classic who would win, like 15 squirrels or 1 flying spaghetti monster, right?
Yeah, who would win? One baby Badgermole Cub sized
Ketramos or one Ketramos sized Badgermole Cub?
Yeah.
I know which one I'm choosing.
And so, while I think, and the reason as well that I think there were so many people who were so quick to scream for bannings is I think people have just been really scared by power creep this year.
Sure.
People have been really unsettled by this, like, powerful, it gets banned, powerful, it gets banned, powerful, it gets banned, kind of like up and down, like seasick, like nauseating level of fluctuation between, like, Corey Steelcutter, banned, Vivi, banned, Badgermole Cub. Like, I think people are getting scared when they see these really, really open-facedly strong cards in Standard. And I think the conversations would be quite different if Universes Beyond had remained as Eternal format only and had not been worked into Standard.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of... I actually agree with you on this point quite a bit, because it feels to me like we have had a new Standard format basically every 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And kind of the whole point of the expansion of the Standard format to 3 years instead of 2 was that your cards would be good for longer, right? You would, you'd see more consistency in your decks. You wouldn't be like, the Standard doesn't rotate as quickly as it used to, say. But because of the like power creep and the like push design philosophy of a lot of the cards, we're seeing soft rotations in Standard happen far more often. So the like countervailing element of this is that we see now a regular ban cycle that's happening every 2 months. So the question is, well, okay, are we a slower rotating Standard format because we have more, like our cards last longer? Or are we a faster rotating format because we are pushing design space and having to ban cards regularly? Like, the Is It Steel Cutter deck was like $500. The VV deck was also like $500-$600. The like Overlords deck, $500-$600. If you took your Overlords cards and you tried to play it in Standard today, just wouldn't work. So it does feel like the two elements are definitely like quite distinctly at odds. And full disclosure, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. It is Standard already is an incredibly hard thing to balance. Card design tricky, really, really hard.
Turns out.
And especially when this was less the case back when Magic had this like slow incremental design philosophy where it was like, look, we are always going to have limited environments where a 2-mana 2/3 is good. And the most crazy card we ever printed was Siege Rhino, and we are going to be very careful about limiting the progression of power creep. And the shift away, that makes it easier to design Standard formats where they are consistent. So now that we have this kind of push design philosophy, we are really balancing the keep Standard fresh versus keep Standard cards available versus print powerful cards that are exciting for formats that are, that are other than Standard. Like One Chitong is not necessarily a Standard card. It was a card that's designed for Eternal formats, but, still sees play in Standard. And we're in an interesting space in terms of like Magic Standard design philosophy. And I remain optimistic because it is kind of a new amount of attention Standard is getting. Standard has only really been getting this like special treatment for the last 12-ish months, which means that there is still a lot of space for that like design philosophy to grow and evolve and settle into something consistent. So I'm looking forward to that. But until then, there are definitely some countervailing winds at play here.
It's really interesting that you mentioned as well, like if you tried to take cards from your, say, Overlords deck or from your Is It Cutter deck and try and play them now, like a lot of them don't see play anymore. And I think there was a really interesting, I'll try and find the graphic so I can put it up. There was someone who had run like a numbers analysis on like, hey, there are currently, I'm going to make a very conservative guess here because I don't want to absolutely overestimate this. There are currently 2,300 cards that are playable in Standard right now. I think it's more than that, but I'm going to say like, let's say 2,000 cards are playable in Standard right now.
Well, there are 11 sets in Standard, about 250 cards a set, give or take.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So like, conservative guess, let's say 2,000 cards in Standard right now. Across all of the decks at Worlds, there are 325 cards from amongst that being played. That kind of speaks more to that idea of like, there are decks that are changing more often, and it is actually likely that the format soft rotates with every set as new cards and new synergies get pushed. And it's really interesting because you'd think, again, like the idea back when Standard was extended to 3 years, the idea was kind of, we want to stabilize Standard. We want to make it more consistent. And it feels like what's actually happened is it's gotten less consistent. It feels like with power creep and with like this push design philosophy, you actually have to change your deck way more frequently. And I think it would be very different if what we were talking about is, rotation happens a bunch of your spells that like, your memory deluges are gone. Your Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow cards are gone. You're really having to change your deck because obviously you have to change your deck. And what was happening was, standard stock up replaced memory deluge, and then consult the star charts replaced stock up. If you were only having to replace 1 or 2 play sets of spells within your decks because they got better as sets were released, I think that we'd be having a very different conversation. But instead, it feels as though decks completely change every time a set is released. Avatar has had an outsized impact on Standard. There are, is it Lessons, Airbender Ascension, Simic, or Boroid? Like, the decks have changed so much with the inclusion of these new Avatar cards to the point where, my pet deck of Zevon-Faust Golgari Graveyard deck, none of those cards are even remotely playable. They were barely playable back when Up the Beanstalk was illegal. Now you can't even, it's a joke to consider that deck playable right now. And so it's interesting, kind of, again, this seasick kind of waves up and down, back and forth. And this is why, this goes back to why I think people have been so quick to identify Badgermole Cub as a problem and go, no. We've seen this multiple times this year. We've seen this before. We're seeing it again. It is too strong. It is too good. Get it out. Because I think there have been instances where a Simic player can suddenly have access to 10 mana on turn 3. And that to me is a vintage thing. That's a multiple Mox, Mox Opal and Chrome Mox, and we're generating mana in weird ways, and we're able to, Dark Ritual and however our way into a ton of mana really early on in the game. That doesn't feel to me like a standard thing.
And Firebending Student can kill you on turn 3.
Yeah, there are so many reasons why I think people have a reasonable reaction to seeing Badgermole, asking for Badgermole Cub to be banned. I don't think this is just annoyance or fear-mongering. I think there is something about the way that the card has been designed and about the way that the mechanics within the set work that make it a very strong card.
I don't disagree that Badgermole Cub is a very powerful card. And I agree that it needs to be watched. But I, as ever, am on kind of the opposite side of this than you. I think people online, hot take, people online have knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
I think there is a tendency for the Magic community, particularly the competitive Magic community, to be oh, this is too powerful, we need to ban it, before a standard format has had time to kind of sit and settle, and especially with the era of online Magic where people tend to congregate around 1 or 2 best decks because information about already powerful decks exists. We've done whole episodes on this concept.
Yeah.
I think it is too soon, but I don't it would not surprise me that come the ban announcement in late January, if Badgermole Cub were on the list because of the way Standard develops. But it's worth saying as well, we are going into the holiday season, which means people are probably going to be playing less competitive Magic, which means we may not see the amount of data we need to conclusively say this does or does not need to be banned. So yeah, pin in that.
I also, while I am going to sit in the chair of, I think there is reason enough to ban Badgermole Cub, similar to my opinion with Corey Steelcutter, I wanted it to be banned, but I was still also in the position of, we haven't even had Final Fantasy yet. We haven't even had another set come out that can give us an idea as to whether or not maybe there's something else coming. And there was something else coming that pushes us out or makes it not as powerful, and that did very much become the case. But we're heading into Lorwyn. So we've got Lorwyn in a month. And so I'm willing to be patient as much as a player is willing to be patient for the next set to come out to see whether or not is this card actually busted, or is there a way to mitigate it that's coming. And I can understand the frustration of players saying well, I'm tired of waiting. It's well, there's already a lot of opinions about how quickly Wizards is putting sets out anyways. pump the brakes a little bit and at least have, give things a little bit of room to breathe. I'm at least willing to wait and see what comes in Lorwyn and how things change, especially now that every color pair, every shard, all of the, everything is, the colors for mana are going to be so much better. Everything is about to improve massively in terms of the ability for people to play busted 3-color and potentially even 4-color decks.
Well, Shock Verge Surveil mana bases are just going to be good.
Wow, so good. This also makes me thinking back to when in Tarkir, when we were waiting for Dragonstorm spoilers, and you were like, I think they should put fetches in Standard. And this was before we knew that we were going to get Shocks in Edge of Eternities. And I was like, we should not be putting Shocks in Standard.
Do it, cowards.
But again, I've made this joke multiple times, and I think it really rings true now. The veil between Modern and Standard grows ever thinner. Yes. The veil was Pioneer. And once we got one set of Shocks in Standard, which we know means we've seen like this happens, like when there's a half a cycle of lands in one set, we get the other half later.
Occasionally that's not true, but especially with the division, I think, of these shock lands, where it wasn't just allies and enemy.
That was weird.
Kind of a bizarre mix of the two.
Yeah.
I think from there we can definitely expect to see the other vibes.
Well, and we were told earlier this year that Lorwyn got pushed to 2026 because of Avatar. So like we were supposed to have the one half of Shocks and Edge of Eternities followed by the other half in Lorwyn.
Sure.
Like we were told this, like we knew this happened. Like it's frustrating. And someone did point out as well that it does mean that at the back half of like rotation, there's going to be a period of time where the other half of Shocks are legal and the previous Shocks weren't because they didn't get printed in the same year. And because of how rotation works now, whoopsies.
Providing they don't get reprinted in some future standards.
We'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what happens in Lorwyn. As always, I am always curious to see what people online are saying, but because I think you and I interface with paper a lot more than perhaps like online creators do, I think there is a tendency for us to at least give a little bit more breathing room and to say, when we were, on Thursdays at POG, when we're looking at standard locals, there wasn't anyone playing VV at standard locals because our standard locals didn't like it. And so they didn't play it. And they didn't own those cards. Like our standard locals for a very long time was like Boros Mice 90% of the time. And so I'm willing to be a little bit patient, and even as a mono green and lands enjoyer, wouldn't surprise me if a future ban announcement says Badgermole Cub is banned.
Sure. I agree. I think the current metagame is a little bit hostile to Badgermole Cub just because there are so many shocks running around the format right now between Torch the Tower and Firebending Lesson. And like even what's the Iroh's
demonstration.
Yeah, Iroh's demonstration dealing with the land. There's just like a lot of good pieces of interaction in already powerful decks, which is pushing Badgermole Cub out of the format as like the most powerful thing to do.
Yeah. But
we'll see.
Look,
I am definitely interested to see, and I really am keen to see what comes out of Lorwyn, mostly just because I am excited to look at Lorwyn cards.
Look, sometimes casting an Ouroboros on turn 2 is just really hard to beat.
Is it possible?
I think
I think you can do it on turn 3. I don't think you can do it on turn 2.
Because
it would have to
Llanowar
be like
Elves turn 1, Badgermole Cub turn 2. You'd only have 2 left over. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you'd have to animate a tapped land. Still, an Ouroboros on 3 for what Ouroboros provides you is very good.
Is Busto. Is crazy Busto broken.
Yeah. And look, if Ouroboros was a 5-mana creature and not a 4-mana creature, I don't think it would be viable, given, as we've discussed, like where the turn cycle tends to play. And I think it would only be viable in Badgermole Cub decks because it would be a little bit too expensive otherwise to ramp into.
I agree.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wild to think about, for sure.
And I think the other thing that really pushes Badgermole Cub is that the animated land is free. Like, in a way, like you will either your opponent expends resources to kill it and you get the tapped land back anyways, or they expend resources to deal with the Badgermole Cub and you still have an Earthbent land. again, like I think it very often becomes either like a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 sometimes. So you just, the more effort that your opponents have to put into dealing with the Badgermole Cub or the Earthbent lands, or even, when you have like another Llanowar Elves, like it just becomes incredibly intensive for an opponent to deal with, and they end up expending a lot of resources on one card. And I think that disparity is something that is really important in competitive formats, is like how much mana are you expending versus your opponent is expending versus how many, cards, resources, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would like to say also, even though I wasn't right at the time, Bloodghast, 4 of in competitively viable deck. I was right.
Which
all
one?
along. The black-green landfall combo deck.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a deck that's using, I think it's called Beifong Bounty Hunters, like a 4-mana spell that lets you sacrifice a creature to Earthbend.
And then you Earthbend and you get the Bloodghast back.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it goes infinite with Stiff Breeze. It's pretty powerful. Like, you can go off over the top of something depending on the number of creatures you have. It's a cool combo deck. It is... I was playing full Bloodghast. I was right.
Well, and again, I think it's really funny, right? We've gotten to the end of the year, and some of the predictions that we were like really strong on, like in February and March, have only come into fruition at the end of the year.
It's true. Now we just need, not Zindasplint, Vinwixt. We just need Vinwixt to make...
You'll love this.
I'm
sorry.
ready.
It's not Vinwixt. I'm sorry. I messed up. It's a different homunculus. The Fibblethip, the one that...
Oh, that lets you plot stuff from the top of your library?
No. When it's actually pretty sure it's the Ravnica remastered one. It's like Fibblethip the Lost when it enters the battlefield from your library, draw 2 cards.
Oh, sure.
That's seeing play in Birthing Pod Modern decks.
Wait. Oh, in like Birthing Ritual Modern decks?
Yeah. Sorry, Birthing Ritual Modern decks.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, weird.
Hell yeah.
It's always so funny when cards suddenly get really good. Like Ashling Flame Dancer, Ashling like Flame Pilgrim, the one from Modern Horizons 3 specifically.
Oh, sure.
Was like a nothing mythic of
Garbaggio mythic.
Garbaggio. It's a rare mythic. Garbaggio rare mythic, like whatever, unplayable. And then Firebending became an ability. And Ashling says you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. Sometimes all it takes, like, I don't know if you saw this as well. So there were some spoilers that came out for Marvel Superheroes, and the Incredible Hulk. Like, there's a Bruce Banner that flips into the Incredible Hulk, and the Incredible Hulk has it's an 8/8 with trample, and it says, when it attacks, if it is dealt damage while it attacks, untap it, and there's another combat phase, and there is a stupid artifact from Urza's Legacy called Caltrops that deals 1 damage when a creature attacks, and if you Caltrops, you can just kind of keep attacking with your Incredible Hulk for several turns.
Six attack steps. Or
exactly.
Something.
You get 6, 7 attack steps, something like that. Like, it's so funny. Like, it's always really interesting. But I will say, you know what? Okay, randomly, this is the last tangent I'll go on. This is the last thing that I have to say about this. I am so sick of various MTG articles that have the stupid headline of random Urza's Legacy card sees 5,026% price increase due to this. Stop it.
Why? Because it goes from 1 cent to $5.
Because it goes from literally like 26 cents to $3. And I'm like, and I know it's clickbaity, it's intentional. 5,000, but it's never anything like this $20 card is now $300. It's always this
5 cent card.
5 cent card is now $2.
$3.50.
Like, literally, it's always like, and they always do the percentages because the percentages sound insane.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you own 300 of them, it's pretty good.
Yeah, great. I don't know why you own 300 Caltrops, but good for you, I guess. Like, and to be fair, I do think Caltrops, like, I don't like talking about how much cards cost generally, but I do think Caltrops went from like $7 to $30, so like that's significant, right?
Sure.
And I think, and that's happened here and there, like Shuko when Nadu was printed. Shuko went from like this stupid like Betrayers of Kamigawa $3 random card that no one cares about to being like $45 or $50, and that was crazy. But I cannot stand the articles and the way that they're written, like specifically with the headline of like, because they also, not for nothing, they say nothing. They never say anything impactful. All they're trying to do is get you to click on their link, and it's always like, random Outlaws Uncommon sees 4,000% price increase, and it went from 7 cents to $1.65. And I'm like, who do you think I am? You think you can disrespect me like this?
I was already charging $1 for that uncommon, you fool.
Like, that is something that absolutely, if there is one thing that gets my goat, it's that.
Fair enough.
Cannot stand those articles. And again, it's not as though they're saying anything impactful. It's always just like, you'll never guess, like with this card being spoiled, and then it's like filler about the set and like, oh, and it's coming out in this time at this year, and we're already seeing some really cool stuff. It's like, great. And then there's like 20 ads in between, like 2 sentences at a time. And then it just goes down to, and so this random uncommon went from 50 cents to $4. And you're like, awesome. Thanks.
Remember, the secondary market doesn't exist and can't hurt you.